Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another week of our Cybersecurity Executive Brief. I am Corey Wolf, Director of Offensive Security at Risk 360, and today is Wednesday, December 4th, 2024. If you're going to be in the Philly area on Friday, December 6th, this Friday, I will be at B-Sides Philly talking about how I trained Llama 3.1 on thousands of threat actor Telegram messages. I'll be giving my presentation on the process and the story of what I did to gather that data and then fine-tune Llama 3.1. So if you're going to be in the Philly area, I hope to see you at B-Sides Philly. I think it's going to be an interesting story. It's something that took a lot of trial and error, but eventually we got it done. So if you're going to be in the Philly area this Friday, December 6th, B-Sides Philly, it's at Xfinity Live in South Philly, and I hope to see you there. This week, the FBI, through the Internet Crime Center, has released a public service announcement related to threat actors using generative AI. So this report is something that most of us that work in offensive security or those of us who are doing red teaming have kind of known that this is what threat actors have been primarily using AI for, which is through the use of phishing, other social engineering, voice cloning, creating deepfake videos. In some instances, we've heard of threat actors actually creating deepfake videos. There was one a couple months back, a business email compromise situation to where a threat actor had gained access to an account, invited some people to a meeting, a Teams meeting. There was video of the person that threat actors were impersonating. There was audio of the person that threat actor was impersonating, and then that threat actor called a meeting, and using deepfake video and deepfake audio, got this group of people to issue, I believe, payment to a specific account. But we've known that this is really what most threat actors have been using AI for, which is to just generate better phishing pages, to generate better phishing emails, create images, all that kind of stuff. But the FBI, has called this out through the Internet Crime Complaint Center and issued a PSA, which indicates that they've seen quite an uptick. They've seen it's significant, we'll say, because for them to put out a PSA like this, that means that they're seeing it more and more and more. So just wanted to call that out, that we are seeing the real use of generative AI when it comes to threat actors and the actions they take is really around, again, just making better phishing pages and that kind of thing. There was some talk of how, the telecom companies recently were breached by Salt Typhoon, a Chinese APT, to where they used generative AI to perform, I believe, reconnaissance, but vulnerability identification. But it's not like it was some full-on, AI-based system just identifying things and going after it. This is the biggest thing that we see: better phishing pages, better social engineering techniques through video and audio, and clearly the FBI has seen an uptick in this as well. Hence why they're issuing this public service announcement. Tips that they throw out there to protect yourself. So this is one that I use for everything. Create a secret word or phrase with your family to verify their identity. So I don't necessarily do this with my family, but I guess maybe I should. Excuse me. I guess maybe I should. But what I do is, a close family member of mine recently had their identity stolen. They were SIM swapped, and they said, "Hey, what should I do?" And the first thing that I said was, call your credit card company, call your phone company, call, all the important places, instead of passphrase. So this is what I do, because the fact of the matter is that our social security numbers, our personal identification, our personally identifiable information rather, is out there. It is what it is. Well, it's not, it's there. There's breach after breach after breach after breach. We're all in breach data somewhere. And the fact of the matter is, it's not hard for a threat actor to get, my mother's maiden name, my social, and, basic information about me. And oftentimes when you call these places, in the case of SIM swapping, when you call these places, they just ask last four social, some basic information that pretty much anyone can get. So what I do is I set passcodes. And so I have a specific passcode that they will, customer service at the, my credit card company or phone company, whatever, will not talk to me unless I know the actual uh, pass passcode. It's not a password; it's passcode, I think. But this is a good tip. I use this if you just have something that only you and that other entity would know. That is one way to fight these types of things. And you could even work this into processes at the organization if it's for some kind of sensitive transaction. So the rest of the stuff, most people probably aren't going to pick up on. Listen closely to the tone and word choice to distinguish between a legitimate phone call from a loved one and AI generated vocal cloning. So unfortunately, a lot of these cloning systems, voice cloning systems with AI, do pick up on the individual intricacies of our speaking and our tone and our cadence with which we say things. I'm not sure there's not much you can really do against that one. Uh, Limit online content of your image or voice. Well, I guess I'm screwed. Make social media accounts private and limit followers to people you know to minimize fraudsters' capabilities to generate AI software to use generative AI software to create fraudulent identities. Okay, that's definitely a way to do it. But just want to call this out because for them to put out this PSA, this is clearly an issue. This is clearly an issue that is gaining traction, and they've appropriately, uh, announced this. So I'll link to this in the description. But generative AI, the use of generative AI, primarily with social engineering tactics, is on the rise. So, speaking of breach data, I mentioned just before that basically all of our information is out there because of breach data. Kind of associated to that is the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau has proposed a rule to stop data brokers from selling sensitive information. So nowadays, of course, we're in the U.S. We do not have a GDPR, but so right now, it's kind of funny that this one came up. That this is being reported on this week because just a week or two ago, I was at Women in Cybersecurity in Delaware Valley, that's the Philly area, and I gave a presentation on red teaming and specifically the reconnaissance and the open source intelligence gathering that goes into red teaming before, as you're formulating your attacks. And one of the things that I showed then was a data broker. So, as a threat actor or anyone else, you can pay for access to data brokers. And what I showed at that presentation was a data broker that you can sign up to and basically get whatever information you want on anyone, at least in the US, we'll say. And so, in the case of a red team or a threat actor, you can purchase access to a data broker and say, give me all the information on everyone that you know of that has this company, contoso.com email address. And you can get a whole list of employees, past and present, for that organization. And so data brokers have just immense amount of data. And what the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau is saying is that this needs to be something needs to happen here, right? There's basically a workaround. So under the Fair Credit Reporting Act, companies like credit reporting agencies, for example, have a specific requirement and duty to protect things like Social Security numbers, and PII and that kind of thing. Data brokers do not, at least under federal law, do not have the same responsibilities, and do not fall under that Fair Credit Reporting Act statute, right? So what the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau is doing is they're basically saying they're proposing a rule that classifies data brokers in the same bucket as places like credit reporting agencies, so that they are, they are required to follow those Fair Credit Reporting Act requirements. So this is the actual CFPB's website where they're talking about this rule that they're proposing. There is some concern, with the new incoming administration focused on removing regulation, that this might not go anywhere, but who knows? But the point is that they are putting this out there. So here we go. To address these risks, the proposed rule would treat data brokers just like credit bureaus and background check companies. Speaking of background check companies, national public data, that background check company from a few months back that was breached and had information private, right? So PII, personal information and socials, birth dates, everything was breached a few months back, and they weren't doing really anything to protect that information. It was like sitting in some .NET app somewhere. Anyways, neither here nor there. But the CFPB is proposing that we treat data brokers just like credit bureaus and background check companies, and then they take additional steps to protect the abuse and misuse of that data. But then also the other thing is require clear consumer consent for data sharing. Um, I don't know what that would look like, and logistically speaking, but overall, this was announced looks like yesterday, um, and it's a good step forward. I guess we'll see where it goes. So something to keep your eyes on and pay attention to. I can't believe I'm saying this, but the FBI and CISA have urged Americans to use encrypted apps amid unprecedented cyber attacks. So, for those of us in cybersecurity that've been around for a little bit, this is a complete 180, we'll say, from what the federal government usually the advice that the federal government usually puts out, because because they have they can't crack encryption, and so they've been pushing back, and trying to limit how much users and people are using encrypted messaging, because it's encrypted. They can't. I shouldn't say they can't. It's much more difficult for them to intercept those messages and really take a look at them. So as a reminder, Salt Typhoon, a Chinese APT, gained access to not only T-Mobile, which we talked about a couple weeks ago, but AT&T, Verizon, and CenturyLink, I think, one other telecommunication provider in the U.S. And basically had full reign. They were in those telco networks for months, and this is really bad. This is probably one of the worst incidents related to both national security and public security that I can think of. This is really bad, and it's so bad that the FBI and CISA is saying use encrypted messaging apps, use encrypted voice calling apps, because Lumen Technologies. There we go. I said CenturyLink, but it was Lumen Technologies was the other one. And so, for those of us that have been in cybersecurity for a while, this is like complete 180 of what the FBI and CISA, well, not, I shouldn't say CISA, but the FBI is usually saying. They don't really want you to, but I would read up on this more if I were you, because it's a serious incident. In some cases, those telcos were running. Not in some cases, in most cases, those telcos were running equipment that's 18 years old, and that's an eternity for IT, right? That's a really long time in IT, and so that these systems, Chinese threat actors were able to basically take them over through basic vulnerabilities. If you look at some of the reporting, they talk about unpatched systems. This is the thing, is that in this telco incident, the Chinese threat actors didn't necessarily have to use advanced